sol tá quente, reclama. Aí tá chovendo, não reclama.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today we're sharing why we decided to leave New Jersey for Fortaleza, Brazil. From cost of living to lifestyle, this entire move has been life-changing, and we're excited to share with you guys why we made this move.
So let's get to it. So reason number one, and they're not ranked in any sort of way, this is just, you know, one of our first reasons, is the slower pace of life and the attention to traditional values that we notice that in America, sometimes that is a lot less common nowadays than it was maybe 50 years ago. Even taking the time to have dinner, taking the time to have those family moments, we notice that that kind of culture is kind of disappearing in America, and it's still thriving, and you know, it's still huge here in Brazil. And that was something that we really valued.
In America, especially like New Jersey, New York, there is a big like hustle and bustle culture. You're just constantly on the move, and families are separated more often than not, with parents being at work, and in this economy both parents really need to work. Kids are at school all day, and we, especially in our situation, we really didn't have help with our 3 kids, so we were tag teaming a lot. We never really had to or got to have dinner together.
Yeah, it was once a week on Sundays.
Yeah,
that
where we really all got to sit and have a meal together.
Yeah.
And we started to realize, like,
we don't have to do this.
We're burning ourselves out. We're not spending any time together as a family, really. So that was a big reason why we decided to come here, is the slower pace of life. There is more emphasis on family time and family values here.
I know in America, it also depends on the family that you're with, but it was something that we were always a little bit envious of the friends that we knew that kind of had that kind of setup. And
yeah, it doesn't not exist in America,
yeah.
But for us specifically, it didn't really exist. Obviously, we had family and friends who were there for us and that were helpful, but we didn't really have that consistent support of like every day, like, you know, a grandparent helping out to pick up our kids from school, or there was nobody there if one of our kids, if we got a call from the school that our kids was sick, it was that one of us would have to leave work, or like
rush in the car.
Yeah.
There's a bigger emphasis in family and spending intentional time together. If you ask anybody here, their most prized possession, like their most thing that they, doesn't matter if you're an extremely high earner or the lowest earner, family is extremely important here. And I think that has a lot to do with the traditional values here, which again, we're a big fan of. Obviously, we're, you know, like, do what makes you happy. This is just something that makes us happy, being around this kind of culture where that emphasis is really placed on staying together and being a family and taking care of your kids. Like, there's nothing more important. And as you know, in America, money kind of supersedes that sometimes. Maybe not to every family, but you know that, like, hey, I can't be at this baseball game, I have work. Or I can't be this, I need to, you know, and we all know that's true. That, like my wife was saying, that hustle and bustle.
And it's mostly, especially nowadays, out of survival. It's not even out of greed, it's just purely out of survival. Like, they're really left no choice but to have to work excessively to just be able to afford the bare necessities of life.
One could argue that in those movies, like with Jim Carrey, like Liar Liar, when he's like working his butt off, it was more about his ambition, why he was clocking in those 60, 70 hours. Like nowadays, a lot of you guys know, you're clocking in 60, 70 hours of work week, and it doesn't even translate to that promotion or to that like moment where you're like, you know what, I'm gonna clock in
no, you're living
67 hours.
Paycheck.
Yeah, you're still paying paycheck to paycheck. So what quality of life is that, you know? And I know that that's crushing a lot of people's soul in the United States, and it does take away from now both parents having to work, both parents having to be out of the house, and it does leave your kids in a situation where they're being raised by their babysitter. And I don't shame anybody for that, but it's just something that ends up happening, and it's not ideal for us and the decisions that we made for our lifestyle. We are fortunate enough to be able to live this life.
You know, even the cost of help, like even outside of family, if you wanted to hire a nanny or a babysitter in New Jersey, is so expensive. I mean, a lot of times moms especially, they end up staying home from work because the cost of a nanny would be the same amount as their pay, so it's like they might as well stay home to take care of the kids. Here it is more common obviously to have family help, but if not, a nanny is super common, and they're a lot more affordable than they are in the
Absolutely.
States.
And it's not to say that nannies are getting overpaid. They're definitely not. It's just the cost of living is so high that ends up happening.
I'm looking.
What's he gonna do?
Whoa.
Oh my God! Jesus Christ! Our kid just jumped off this whole dune.
I feel like the whole time I'm like, while you're talking, I'm just watching them because these waves are crazy right now.
Yeah, I mean, granted, to be honest, they're not even close to like, they're where the white water kind of touches their feet. They know better than to go in there. And if they do, I'm just gonna have to drop this camera and go into a lifeguard mode.
So speaking of the cost of everything, it kind of segues into our next reason, which would be the cost of living here. Which, if you are someone who's capable of earning US dollars and living here,
or euros,
yeah, you're gonna live a comfortable life because the exchange rate here, well, I don't know what it is for euros, but I know for dollars to reais is 6 to 1. So that's $100 in America is $600 in Brazil.
Oh, 600 reais.
Right, but it is not as affordable if you're earning in reais, obviously. Some people would argue here that it is getting expensive here also. A lot of the locals complain about the grocery prices or the cost of living.
They were complaining about the coffee.
Yeah.
They were like, can you believe a thing of coffee is 15 reais? And I'm assuming...
Which in dollars is what?
Oh, in dollars it would be...
15 divided by 6.
See, obviously you
Like
can tell we're tattoo artists. We have no clue.
$2, $3 or something?
Yeah, it'd be like $2-3 for like, you know, a big thing of coffee.
Standard size of coffee.
But if you're used to that coffee being 5 reais and all of a sudden it's 10, 15, you're gonna be feeling it too. So that's something that we do kind of see all around the world. If you are earning in dollar or in euro, coming here is a great option for that alone. And if you're also somebody, now for example, Brazil is still cheap if in dollar, but it's still a little bit expensive, comparable to other places of the earth, right? So I have a lot of friends that, people that I met in crypto that have decided to move to the Bahamas. Oh wait, do you want a sunscreen?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Sem proteção solar. I'm gonna take a quick second to buy some sunscreen because we actually were gonna stop at the pharmacy, but luckily there's a lot of people that walk by selling stuff. It's actually a little cheaper than the store, so. All right.
I know, but it's extremely hot today, and I want to make sure that you're covered.
It is. It really is.
Sam, does this not open like that? Here, let me put this on you. Let me get your back.
Yeah, here in Fortaleza, we are extremely close to the equator. So the sun here burns similar to if you guys ever been to the Bahamas or Puerto Rico. We're literally, I think the equator actually goes through Fortaleza. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but it's really close. So the sun here is hot, boy. Okay.
But yeah, so back to the cost of living situation. As you know, in the United States, inflation is crazy right now, especially if you're someone who lives in the tri-state area like we did in New Jersey. So here in Fortaleza, we are living in a small apartment. It's a little 2-bedroom. It's probably about, I would say maybe 500 square feet. It is really small. It's a temporary thing. We're doing a long-term Airbnb right now. We're in the area of Fortaleza because his family lives here, so it was a good way to transition to a new country, having family here. We are living in a beachfront apartment that has swimming pools, a gym, what else? A restaurant,
movie
office
theater.
Space, movie theater.
Yeah.
It's equipped with, it's like a resort. We're living basically in a resort, and we are paying the equivalent to about $800 US a month. Now,
And from our window, we see the ocean. Like
Yeah.
we literally, like no
Our
joke,
balcony.
we can go down the elevator and be at the beach in less than 2 minutes.
If you were to pay that in New Jersey,
Cool.
not only would you only be able to really enjoy it for a few months out of the year, here you're enjoying it year round.
Yeah.
In New Jersey, you'd be enjoying it for all
Maybe
of
4
3-4 months.
June, July, August, and
Bits of September and May.
Yeah, that's local summer. Yeah,
You
it
would
be that
probably be
situation.
paying, I mean, God, even for something smaller than us, a studio apartment. We're getting sold something.
Yeah. Quanta água? Me dá 2 águas aí. Let me
Hold
get
on,
some
we're gonna
water.
get some water.
Here, hold this.
So, ooh, what's going on here?
See, hold on. That's what's super convenient is people kind of come to you with water,
Yeah, you don't
snacks.
have to get
So
up.
I'm not mad about that.
So yeah, if you were to be living in a situation like we're living in right now in New Jersey, you would be paying probably, oh my God, 3,000,
No, more than that.
4,000, maybe even 5,000.
I think like 5. In Asbury Park, like $5,000.
Yeah,
Easy.
a month. Yeah, which is crazy. So here,
And for what?
I mean, inflation, I guess, is hitting the locals. But like I said, if you're someone who's able to earn US dollars here, you could live like a king.
I mean, you imagine, where are you going to live in the United States if you had a budget of spending $800 a month? Where are you living like that?
Nowhere.
You know?
You could hardly afford it. Even if you were just someone who was living, you know, in a normal neighborhood, not beachfront, not anywhere near the beach, you're still paying close to $3,000.
Yeah, once
month.
utilities come in and everything, you're going to be paying close to $3,000.
And it's nothing extravagant. I mean, it's
No.
probably a house that hasn't been renovated in 30 years. An older home. It's nothing new, nothing extravagant. It's just the bare necessities.
You're also going to be in an area where it's just not going to feed your soul the same way. Now,
Yeah.
if you're living somewhere for $8,000 a month in the United States, if you have that kind of budget, which is like the 1% of the 1%, yeah, you might be able to land in Miami and all that. But it's if you have a family, that's the other thing too. Like the difference between Fortaleza and Miami, as you see the skyscrapers behind us, even though it is still a very modern city and you still have all those amenities and Wi-Fi and, you know, public, what is it called? Public transportation and all that, you're still in a situation where it's mostly party, right? So here in Fortaleza, unlike Rio, it's very family here. You don't see people drunk in the streets. Like in Miami, I'm sorry, you're gonna see people fighting.
A lot of ratchetry.
Ratchetry, it's a good word. You're gonna see couples fighting. You're gonna see people revving their engine with a Ferrari that they just rented, it's not even theirs. You're gonna see that life, which, hey, if you're going to Miami because you're going to spring break, no problem. But if you have a family, especially us, we have a family of 5.
With young children.
Yeah, and here we see a lot of, you know, we notice in the United States there's people not really having as many kids for multitudes of reasons, affordability, lifestyle. But here, you actually, it's still kind of happening here, but people still have a kid, a child or two, and it's a lot closer to what we want.
So yeah, so inflation really made it hard for us to live the life that we really wanted to live and have with our children, so...
And it's not even like we needed to live a life that was like super extravagant.
No.
It's just the basic like dignity. And I'm sure a lot of you guys from America watching this video, you know what we're talking about. Yeah. It's like the dignity of like, you know, I want to be able to not have to choose like, am I going to get fired today or am I going to make it to my daughter's recital? Am I going to get fired today if I asked to, my kids had a delayed opening? Can I, you know, and I'm sure that happens here too. Don't get me wrong. But it's not the same as the US, and you guys know that. Anyone in the world will tell you that the US, the hustle culture, is great if you're single and you know, you're 26, 27, you don't have family, and you just want to be the best businessman, the best lawyer. There's no better place on earth than the United States for that. But once you start settling down into a family, then all of a sudden it doesn't become the best place unless you were born into a certain situation, which we weren't, you know, so... Here we are, you know, we're here in my land, technically.
Yeah.
You know, I technically was born here, so I feel very extremely lucky because, like I was mentioning before, there are other countries that, you know, maybe it will give you a better tax incentive or the cost of living is even lower. Now, Brazil's cost of living is low enough for us, 6 to 1 is beautiful. Now, I'm positive you can go to the Bahamas, you can go to Singapore, you can go, maybe not Singapore actually, Thailand. Philippines, you know, and live a great life over there. But now, and that's great, you know, but now, are you getting the same amenities as Brazil and the United States are very close. Brazil is maybe like 5-10 years behind on a lot of cultural things and a lot of things. As far as this guy selling sunglasses, which obviously our sunglass game's strong here. But yeah, so you are living in a totally different culture, right? Where, you know, in the Philippines or in Thailand, they might be a little more Buddhist, which is nothing bad, but it's not, like they might even celebrate Christmas over there. And here, I know for a fact that if I want to go to McDonald's, there's a McDonald's literally like, I can, you know, I can hopscotch there. No, what's the word?
And arguably, McDonald's is actually better here, I think. They put a little bit more love in it.
They
like
do.
Your sandwiches are a little bit more like gourmet feeling. Where in America,
saucier.
it's like they just like slap things together. Like your bun will be like half on, and like they just throw this like sad piece of like limpy lettuce on there.
Yay!
Oh no. I hope she didn't just throw sand in my drink.
That's why she's probably celebrating. It's like, yeah, messed up mommy's drink. But yeah, like she was saying, and we'll talk about this as one of our reasons as well, but even the quality of meat and food.
That's actually the next point.
All right, cool. So we'll transition right into that. So we were doing research, and even the McDonald's, granted, you're not stepping into McDonald's thinking you're about to eat healthy that day.
Can you grab her a bucket of water?
Yeah. So even McDonald's, right? Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're not going to gain weight eating McDonald's every day. That's McDonald's. You already made the conscious decision before you even walked in that today is not the day you're eating healthy, right?
I'm going to end up getting McDonald's tonight after
we might. We're talking about a lot. That's what they do. That's sneaky. But yeah, you're not really going to feel that way, right? So, but in terms of food regulation, Brazil has they're a lot closer to Europe with how strict they are with food dyes and antibiotics and steroids, GMOs.
Even the beef, all of the beef here is grass-fed. In
for the
America,
most part, like almost like 99, for the cost effectiveness of the animals eating what it's supposed to eat. And like you were saying, what were you going to say? It's more expensive.
No, it's just like the grocery store is like they're automatically selling you, for the most part, like you said, grass-fed beef. In America, you have to select that option yourself, and it's always the more pricier option. It's never as cheap as the non-grass-fed beef.
In America, they do put a lot of emphasis less on the consumer and more on the seller. So they do allow, they're a little more loosey-goosey with, and again, none of us have lab coats on, so I'm not a nutritionist, but I do notice that in a lot of other countries, a lot of the chemicals that they allow in the food in America, such as preservatives and dyes and all sorts of other things, they don't allow here or in Europe. So I don't who's to say who's correct, but I'm gonna play my odds that, there's most of the countries don't do it. So to me, it may not be the same for you, but to me, it feels like the more healthier option is to eat less. And you know what, dude? We had Doritos here, tasted exactly the freaking same.
Yeah, they were good.
We didn't have as much food coloring here. I did notice there were less orange, and I do notice that if I bought my Dorito in a dark room, they didn't glow. So that was pretty cool.
You're also getting smaller portions here.
Yeah,
so because they're not using as many preservatives, you are getting smaller portions. Like for example, we went to essentially the Costco of Brazil, and their family-sized mayonnaise was the size of a normal-sized mayonnaise in America. And things go bad a bit quicker. You probably have to food shop, especially for fresh produce. We are food shopping probably every 4 or 5 days for things like that, because they do go bad quicker. Like I said, they're also smaller. Even things like the fruits, the bananas, the apples, they're all smaller because they're not pumped
genetically
with
modified
hormones.
Yeah.
And you're kind of getting a more natural food. So it comes with having to buy things more often, which I think is a fair trade-off to me. I don't mind.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I don't mind having to go to the grocery store a little bit more often if I'm consuming less chemicals and hormones of the sort.
And I feel like most of you guys will feel the same way, just simply on the fact that, and also it does help that we're in a city, so we don't even have a car, so it's not even like we have to get in the car to go do a lot of this stuff. A lot of the food shopping I do is just for a couple essentials, and I just go on my skateboard. I'm back in 15 minutes, or maybe not 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, but it's something super casual, and most of the world functions like that. And in the United States, they kind of trick you into buying a giant thing of cornflakes, a giant thing of mayonnaise, and you think in the moment, and this is like the Costco paradox, you think in the moment wow, I'm gonna have cornflakes and mayonnaise forever. But then you find out...
It's like the convenience.
Yeah, but then you find out you end up eating it more. You buy a giant thing of little bites, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to portion this.
It's going to save, or it's going to last longer.
No, you just end up eating more, and you know that's true. Anyone on the comment section that says otherwise, don't. Because it's just not true. You're being naive. You end up eating more.
Yeah.
And if the trade-off is, fine, you can't get a giant tub of mayonnaise that when you're done you can shower a newborn in. Obviously, you're not going to get a giant thing like that. But you know what? It's like, why am I eating all those preservatives? It's much simpler to just go to the store and get another one. And I don't know, like I said, it really depends on your lifestyle. And I guess speaking to somebody in New Jersey, they might not kind of understand kind of where we're coming from. But just know that in most corners of the earth, people are perfectly happy and they're happier than a lot of people in New Jersey, and they have to food shop maybe twice a week, you know? So that's not the determining factor of what makes you happy and what doesn't make you happy. It's convenient. I'm not gonna say it's not convenient, but also how is convenient being one of the sickest countries in the world, one of the sickest, most developed countries in the world? You know, you're eating all these preservatives, you're eating all this,
You have
all
kids
these chemicals.
with diabetes.
Yeah, you have something where I was listening to the head of the Human Health and Services talk about, and it was something like in the 70s in the United States, it was something like a doctor would go his entire career, maybe one child or two would have childhood diabetes. Now, I might have my fact wrong here, but it was something like a third of the kids are pre-diabetic. That is insane to me. And why? And then it becomes one of those things when you even ask why, then people start getting mad at you, they look at you weird, they think you're a conspiracy theorist. But I think it's a valid question. You should be asking why. You would think that America being as beautiful and as powerful as it is, and I do have all the love in the world for America, there's no reason why the richest, most influential, most powerful country on earth doesn't have the most healthiest people on earth. And we can sit here and talk about culture and all that, but at the end of the day, there's no excuse. There really is no excuse. But this is why we're here. And going back to the food, eating healthier here is cheaper. Even to the local Brazilian, the government does keep, just like in the United States, there is a baseline that you charge for certain household items like eggs, beef, milk. The government does do a pretty good job at keeping costs low. And on top of it, because we beans, fruits. And one advantage of being in Fortaleza, if you're considering moving here from the United States or Europe, meat here is about 4 times less. So it's a quarter of the price comparable to the United States. And I know we touched on the fact that it's a little healthier here and everything, but eating healthier is a lot easier. And
eating whole foods.
Yeah, eating whole foods.
Organic.
You're also getting vitamin D from the sun. So it's just a healthier lifestyle. If that's something you prioritize in, living here is a no-brainer. But obviously, you know, it's a lot easier for somebody that is earning dollars. So mind, you know, everything I'm saying here, you know, we also have to be honest. And, you know, it is something where if you are earning in dollar, you are earning in euro, you're going to have a great time over here. You're going to realize that there's a little part of you that's Brazilian as well. Even though your heritage might not say so. Everyone falls in love here. Our neighbors where we live, we have Dutch neighbors, we have Russian neighbors, we have Italian, a lot of Italian neighbors. And they're fresh off the boat. They're literally like lived in Holland, lived in Germany, and they come here. And that's something that in the US, I never met as many off the boat, like full blown, I left Europe to go live somewhere else. A lot of them, there's not many people leaving Holland to go live in the United States.
There's a lot of course, America is the land of the immigrants.
Yeah.
You have a lot of multicultural, but it's like multi-generational.
Yeah.
It's like the people who came here first are no longer even alive because they came here so long ago.
Yeah, they came here in the 30s.
The immigrants now are basically Americans. They're so Americanized at this point that some of them don't even know their native language anymore.
No.
Like they're just, they're Americans, even though their DNA might be Indian
Irish,
or
something.
like, so, yeah, it's like they're American.
Yeah, they're American.
They're not off the boat the way that they are here.
No one's blabbing around in Gaelic. No one's, you know, it's like, oh, my great-grandmother, I think, was Polish, you know?
It's rare.
Yeah, it's very
It's around,
rare.
but it's rare.
But then you ask them, do you speak Polish? And they're like, no. You know, but then if I go to my neighbors, like, do you still speak German? Do you still speak?
Yeah, they're kids.
You know?
I mean, they have a 4-year-old who speaks English, Dutch, and Portuguese.
Yes, she does.
Like, that's
great,
yeah.
You know?
So our fourth reason, and again, these aren't in any type of order, it's just reason number 4, is...
I was going to say, we're living here in Fortaleza, a little Fortaleza, so our reasons are going to be a little scattered.
Yeah. But reason number 4 would be safety and stability. So as everybody knows, there's a lot of worldwide global tension these days. And we know that Brazil is a very peaceful place. As you like to say, Brazil would be a waste of a nuke.
Yeah. Like, what I mean by that is like living in the United States, and again, anyone from New Jersey, from the US kind of knows, every week there's a new catastrophe or potential for catastrophe.
And I think also as millennials who we were children when 9/11 happened, we have this like trauma where we feel like something like that could happen again.
Yeah. We're never more than a week away from something awful happening.
Yeah, we grew up with a lot of turmoil, and things have arguably gotten worse, I feel like, as far as tension and the potential for war breaking out. And it's scary being in an area like New Jersey and just the tri-state area alone near New York. Something could happen, and I feel like some people, maybe they just want to push that out of their minds and think like, oh, it's not going to happen, but it's a very real possibility.
Yeah, if you look at history, it has happened.
Yeah.
It's just, if you want to put your, not think about
your rose-colored glasses on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Like,
and I'm not saying New Jersey is a bad place to live.
No.
New Jersey is a lovely
it's great.
place
I love
to live.
New Jersey.
The food is amazing. The people are very funny, I will say. But it is a reality that every American knows. Even when you go to New York, there's always that tension of like, something can go off, something could happen.
There's always a crazy person who pushed someone on the subway, or what happened? The person lit that woman on fire or something.
Yeah, and that's
like, there's always
awful.
something. Yeah.
Now, granted, there is. We are in a city.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go, and especially here, we are in a city, so you want to be wise. Obviously, like Brazil is also like. I'm not going to say Brazil is the safest country on earth, but as you see, we're here. Like nothing's happening. But
and there's areas of every city that are not going to be as safe or as nice. But where we are it's very much like a little bubble here. You see people running and jogging early in the morning, late at night, and the crime here is very petty. I guess it's more like people who are
like they'll
in need that might steal. They might pickpocket.
Yeah, they'll pickpocket.
But it's not like a violent crime where somebody's just coming up and hurting somebody or killing someone just because they're crazy.
Yeah, especially here at the Beira Mar, just like New York. Like you wouldn't walk, and not to like victim blame or anything like that, but like if you're walking through New York, like you're in a sketchy neighborhood, it's 3 a.m, and you get mugged. That's half on you, like not to victim blame, but that's like, what are you doing? You know better. Why are you out in a sketchy alley at 3 a.m. drunk? And that can happen in New York, in Fortaleza, in Rio, in Germany, and any place on earth. You still need to have a little bit of street smarts and not put yourself in a bad situation. Now, here at the Beira Mar in Fortaleza, like I've gone out at almost midnight to go get her a churro. We put the kids to bed, and this lady wants to eat churros. She wants to eat cakes.
If you don't know what a churro is, it's a churro.
A churro. Sorry, I gotta say it like an American.
A churro here is filled with like caramel,
there's a filling.
Chocolate. Yeah.
It's not that dry ass churro you guys get at Six Flags where it's just it seemed incomplete when I moved to Brazil,
like the shell of
United States. Yeah, it's like you half-assed it. You did 50% of my churro. Where's the filling? Imagine getting an Oreo and there's no filling, and they're like, this is an Oreo. It's like, no, it's not. But either way.
Anyway.
Yeah, here it's super chill. I go on my skateboard, I get the churro, I come back. But I'm here at the Beira Mar. There's always a lot of, it's super well lit. There's a lot of like guards and police that are always around, and not in a scary way. They're just around patrolling and everything. And not for nothing, we lived in Tom's River, which is really close to Seaside and Point Pleasant in New Jersey. If you guys are from Jersey, And what do we call the Seaside Boardwalk? Sleeside, because I would never walk with my family. Not that it would be the most dangerous thing in the world, but it's like walking through Atlantic City at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, walking through Seaside at 11 o'clock at night, midnight. You might get like, what's the word? You might get mugged. Somebody might look at you funny. You might start a fight.
People don't really do that here. Like there's not like that.
They keep it classy.
Yeah, there's not people that get like drunk walking on the streets. There's not, even on the Seaside Boardwalk, like even just the shops that you see with the shirts that say
God, dude.
I heart MILFs or like, just like kind of like trashy. It's like, it's funny, don't get me wrong, but it's trashy. You don't see that here. It's a lot more of like a classy, family friendly, like you'll be walking on the boardwalk seeing shirts like that. And it's like, why does my 7-year-old need to read a shirt that says something like that? And it's just out in the open, it's fine.
Yeah.
Here you don't really see that. There's a little bit more of a class, I guess
a little
classiness.
Say.
Yeah, family-friendly classiness.
Whereas in America, they really value
like Jerry Springer lifestyle.
Yeah, that Jerry Springer, Joe Pesci, and it's fun. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. I've gotten a lot of good laughs.
But we've become a reality show almost, like where it's like kind of fun to see New Jersey be this like funny, like not sitcom, reality show.
Like Jersey Shore. They filmed Jersey Shore 2 minutes from where we lived in New Jersey, and props to Snooki and you know all those guys. Like we did watch it, but it's like we don't want to live it. But yeah, that's something here where the drinking culture, even this is like a subcategory. The drinking culture in America is drink until you puke, drink until you punch your stepmom in the face, right? Fight with your stepdad, you know? Call your cousin the N-word. No.
Oh my God.
Don't do it. I've seen it. But
Holy
I might
shit,
keep that.
babe. Maybe you need to cool it on the Capitanius. Damn. Here it's an endearing term though.
It is an endearing term. to most people.
People name their dogs.
They will. I did hear there was some lady calling her dog the N-word. But here it's not the same
That's what his grandpa would call his grandma.
Yeah, no, in a loving way. They were friends. They were married for 40 years. Or 50 years. 50 years. I said 40, 50 years. But no, my grandpa was Portuguese. My grandma was, you know, half African, half Brazilian. But the culture here is a little different, so don't try that in America.
No.
Okay? So yeah, that's something where you're like, damn, dude, like I don't need to see that. And here in Fortaleza, and Rio is a little more party-centric, but here in Fortaleza, you are getting a crowd of people that are a lot more family-oriented. You're not getting anybody here for spring break, you know. And even if you are coming to visit Brazil, most likely, I'm sure a lot of you viewers don't even know where Fortaleza is. When you think of Brazil, you think of São Paulo, the Amazon, and Rio. And Fortaleza, and that's another thing, living in a city that isn't the top 3, you know, actually what I think the 4th biggest city is great for me because there's a lot less tourists and a lot more less hustle and bustle and a lot more relaxing, and you know, you see a lot of older European couples here holding hands, walking, enjoying their life. Not to be scary about America or anything like that, but you know, if war or anything like that does break out, like let's be honest, you know, you're gonna have Europe and the Middle East and North America really being affected by it. You never, through all history, like Brazil, we pretty much stay in our lane here. I know Brazil is the 7th biggest economy in the world, which to me is like being a millennial, like maybe Gen Z doesn't remember 9/11 or any of that stuff, and I know a lot of
some of them weren't even born yet.
Yeah, exactly, which is alarming. Anytime I see somebody that was born after 2001, I'm like, how are you even a person? Like, aren't you supposed to be 6 years old right now? Like, how's this real? But
like, I'm still only 21.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still only 21. But it's one of those things where like someone's coming for the crown, that you're not gonna be number 1. And if you're number 2, you're almost number 1, so you're always eyeing that crown. And if you're number 3, same thing. You're like, dude, I could be number 2, number 1. If you're number 7, you're not. You're just chilling. Now, granted, there's like 80-something countries on Earth. I could be wrong. There might be hundreds. But I might be just thinking of FIFA, you know, because soccer brain. When you're number 7, you're perfectly happy. You're not. No one's bombing Brazil. No one's starting anything with Brazil. You know, Brazil kind of stays in our lane. You know, we're close. We have ties with China. We have ties with Brazil. We have ties with, with the United States. We have ties with Russia. So to us,
there is its own political turmoil that's kind of going on here.
Similar to the U.S.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They have like their version of like their Trump kind of here.
Yeah, their January 6th moment and everything.
Yeah, they have their own versions of that.
But to me, it's a lot less it's a lot more manageable being here than kind of being in the main character country, you know? And
I think there's still a level of respect still, even amongst the people who feel differently politically, where in America there's
hostility,
a huge polarity where like if you have one point of view that maybe aligns more with one side, you're automatically labeled and put into a box as like, oh, you think this way, then you must be supportive of this and
of X,
we
Y,
shun
and Z.
you. Yeah, like it's very polarized.
And it creates a situation where a lot of people might agree with X, Y, and Z,
but not agree with ABC.
With ABC or just A, right?
Right.
And then a lot of people are, and you know this is true, a lot of people are afraid to say that, hey, I agree with ABC, but I don't agree with D, because they're afraid of getting shunned, they're afraid of getting pushed out of their friend group, they're afraid of getting fired, they might, you know, and that's something where, I mean, luckily we're tattoo artists, so we kind of make our own schedule and our own things. We're not, you know, we're fortunate enough to be in a position where
But that's
we're
the
not
reality
living
of
it.
America right
But
now.
it is, and
People in healthcare are getting fired because they, might not agree with a vaccination or something, and it's
yeah, people are getting
crazy.
fired. If you're a nurse or if you work in the healthcare or really in any field, you know exactly what we're talking about. And I'm not here to say I agree with side A or B. And it's funny that we even have to say this.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to preface
I have
everything.
to put this preface here so I don't get a mean comment section. But it's also like, man, live your life. Like anyone that knows us, they know that we have friends on both sides of the aisle. And, before people get to meet people on an individual level where they would really agree with like 99% of things, they want to put people in boxes. And then fun to trash them on the internet or to be rude, and they think that it's somehow that's public service. Like the fact, you know what I mean? Like for example, you may not agree with Elon Musk, but every time every time someone burns down a Tesla and people are clapping, you're not hurting Elon, you're hurting the consumer, that you're hurting that family that has to take the kids to school.
That guy whose car it is, yeah.
But then you do it and you post that on a conservative website, let's say, and people are like, what a shame, blah, 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 we can't be doing that. And then you post it on the left side, and they're like, oh my God, I think I saw somebody that may never come back from the ocean again. Oh my God, that girl just fell from 10 feet into that
And
wave.
she's going, oh my God, she's getting sucked back in. Is she okay?
I guess, she's fine.
Oh my
Holy
God.
cow, dude, she's definitely shooketh. But yeah, it's just not nice. And deep down that it's just not nice. Oh look, she's like, yeah,
She's
I just ate
okay.
shit. I just fell.
alive.
Oh my God, I think I talked to my great grandmother that passed away. I met her. I had a blink where I almost stepped in. She reached out her hand, but I didn't take it. I'm back. But we're not gonna show her. She's a nice lady. She looks nice, but we're not here for this. But let's just say the wave was yay high and she was riding the top, and then it came crashing down, and now she's out of the water. But she's okay. But all right, cool. So reason number 4? 5. Reason number 5. That's 5. That's Portuguese 5.
It's about the education system and homeschooling. So here in Brazil, we are homeschooling. It's something that we're doing for now, for the year, as our kids, they don't know the language, but it is something that we're practicing, Another thing is too, if you're coming here, nobody really speaks English. There are people who they know the basics and stuff, kind of the way that in America we learn Spanish is the same thing with the schools here. They learn English in the same way. So they know a few words, but for the most part you need to learn Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
So
or get a nice translation app.
I have my
That'd be
personal
super good.
translator here. Thankfully I'm married to somebody who's from the country
That's
and
me.
speaks Portuguese. All the kids, they're going to be learning Portuguese. They have dual citizenship here, so Brazil worked for us. So we're homeschooling for the year, and maybe we'll continue. Maybe we'll put them in something. They do have schools here even that are for expats for American kids. So
Yeah, well, they'll teach you American history and Brazilian history, and 50% of the school day is in English, and the other 50% is in Portuguese and everything. So they do accommodate for that.
we'll see. But for now, we are homeschooling. I like that it's a way for us to kind of keep our kids learning the education that they need for their grade level and not really anything extra that maybe they don't need. There are a lot of changes happening in the U.S. school system that are
Maybe
don't align with our values.
Yeah, and listen, if that's your value, that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? The earth is a big place. I'm not here to tell anybody that they're living their life wrong.
But our kids are so young too. Our kids are only 6, 7 years old. They're in kindergarten and 2nd grade, and some of the things that are happening in elementary schools just aren't really some things that I think that kids this age should be learning about. They should be learning how to read. They should be learning how to add, subtract, multiply, divide. That's basically it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Learning proper hygiene, wash your hands, and about germs. There's certain things that I don't really agree with that they should be learning, especially at this age. And homeschooling allows us that individualized, what's the word I'm
experience,
looking for?
I guess, right?
Yeah.
See, so we obviously believe in education. Education is one of the most powerful skills and tools that you can possibly carry on with your life to carry you through life. But there's a big difference between education and the educational system. And we're not here to sound woo-woo conspiracy, but it is something where you kind of have to respect the the family's choice, the same way that a lot of people respect everyone else's individual choice.
And a lot of
You know,
people
we can't
who
be here
feel
judging.
opposite are people who don't even have children.
Half the time it's true.
Unless you're a parent, I mean, not to be disrespectful, but your opinion doesn't really hold as much weight or as much value as someone who's living in the parental role.
And you should know that as somebody that's like a, you know, like, it would be as if I'm giving advice about baking bread and I don't know how to bake bread. You know what I mean? It's like, I can have an opinion, but it's obviously going to weigh a little bit less comparable to somebody with, you know, baking experience in this example. I'm not going to tell a dentist, you know, but at the end of the day, it's very important to respect everyone's views and everything, because I don't want to live in a world where people are just so polarized, you know. And America at the moment right now, and I know it's going to get better. I know it's going to get better. You know, it's almost like in fashion, it's in vogue to be like, did you hear what the other side said? And this is how I feel. And I don't have that lifestyle, and it's not anything I'm focused on. Outside of my family bubble, and you can call me selfish, I don't know, but outside of my family's bubble, I really have no interest in, you know, I just respect everyone's personal choice, and that's it, you know. Like, I just want to be concerned about my family, and I'm going to do my best to give them a good life, and hopefully people can respect that as well, you know.
Right. Another thing is about the school system is, well, not even necessarily the school system, but just the safety of schools. And it's more to do with, you know, every other day you're hearing about, oh, thank you. You're hearing about another school shooting. You're seeing Walmart sell bulletproof backpacks. I mean, it's unsettling. There was a couple occasions even where we had some false flags. Like, there was an email sent out that the kids' school was on lockdown because there was a threat called in that turned out to be like a prank from another school. But either way, it's very unsettling. And then there was another instance where all over Facebook there was like a letter that, you know, the following day that there was going to be something happening at the high school or something. And it was just very much unsettling. Like, am I sending my kid to school tomorrow? Like, there was twice that something like that happened. And again, my kids are young. They've only been in the school system for 2 years. And for these things to be happening is like...
It's a shame.
It is.
And it's very unsettling, like you said, because you have to think, like, do I call out of work?
Yeah, like, do I not go to work tomorrow to stay home with my kids because of this threat that was maybe not even real, but it's still... unsettling.
It sits in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, even the week that we arrived here.
The week that we got here, we saw on Facebook that I guess one of the parents was upset about something and was threatening to go to the school and shoot it up or something.
Yeah, and it's like that's a first world problem. I mean, it's a first world country, but that's no offense. I mean, I'm in a third world right now, technically. Like, it's a third world problem. It's like, there's no... But that's the thing. It's like the desperation and the divide in America is so big right now that is like pretty common now.
And the entitlement. Like, who the hell are you as a parent to threaten to go shoot up your child's school?
Right.
Please stop.
Right.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, dude.
Who the hell are you to come in and say something
even
like
threaten
that?
something like that?
Yeah,
is
like,
insane.
what is wrong with you?
You know? But that's something that, like I said, of course, you know, Brazil has its problems, but you don't hear school shootings here. No. You don't hear of, like, you know, you do hear problems, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of the problems is relative to what position are you putting yourself in. Are you going out late at night? Are you going to a bad neighborhood, right? And as long as you respect the people here and the culture and how everything is done here, you're going to be just fine. But now in America, I could respect and follow every single rule and be at Target at the wrong time and then end up being a target, you know, no pun intended. But it's true, you know, and it's unsettling, and there's a big loneliness crisis going on in America. There's a lot of desperation. There's a lot of, like, drug abuse. Even here, you see a lot of the drug abuse in the lower class, I guess you would say. But in America, it's like the drug abuse, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what class you're in. We grew up in a super nice neighborhood in New Jersey. Could not be one of the best places to be in. You could leave your door unlocked, everything. And I can name 15 kids that weren't necessarily
that aren't here anymore.
They weren't necessarily
they
my
didn't
friends
even make
or
it to
anything.
30.
They didn't, and and they grew up in nice houses, and they had nice futures ahead of them. But there is that situation, you know, and it's
There's
like...
a lot of like depression, and I think it does come from, I mean, also here in Brazil, it does feel very much like we're like 20 years behind. Like it kind of feels like the 90s, early 2000s when there was still like hope in the world.
Yeah.
I feel like in America, things feel very hopeless.
Dystopian.
And the people feel very hopeless, and they resort to just kind of numbing themselves with drugs and alcohol and things of the sort.
Oh, dude, it's drugs, alcohol, video games, pornography.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that isolationism.
Escapism.
That's the word. That's a better word. Escapism. Yeah. And because, you know, even, I guess, talking about affordability a little bit, a normal house in New Jersey, which is already one of the more expensive states, ran you about $200,000 for a starter home. Now, that same home is selling for about $500,000 plus. And then on top of it, we're having bigger corporations buying those homes from under families. So somebody like you and me would be able to maybe go $30,000 over asking price. And now you're having these companies going 80, 90, and they're not going to live in there. It's just an investment property that they plan on Airbnb-ing and all that stuff. And
or renovating and selling for double the price.
Not even renovating it like nicely, like the super
bare
like,
minimum.
you know, the bare minimum. And it becomes a situation where, and again, a lot of millennials know exactly what we're talking about. It's like your hope of buying a home goes out the window. You're not going to be able to afford a home like your parents did in the same way.
We're the first generation to be poorer than our parents.
Absolutely, on average. You know, a lot of the jobs that are being, and we can sit here and talk about AI and all those things, but a lot of the jobs that in the 70s were here, and you could be a warehouse worker, you could, you know, work at a bank as a teller, and over time save some money and buy a house. Now we're in a situation where you can bust your ass, have 2 side businesses, and maybe you might get a house that's broken down in a bad neighborhood. When we were looking at houses a couple years ago, we saw in real time how for the budget of, we weren't fortunate enough to buy the house that we really wanted at maybe the most optimal time, because things like tripled in like, or doubled in a matter of, you know, a few years, especially during COVID. But that house, oh yeah, you would go on Zillow, right? And if you're American, you know what Zillow is. And you would see like 15 pages, 10 houses per page, so 150 houses that are within your budget that are able to be sold. Now, you look up your budget, maybe 3 houses pop up, and in a matter of days, they're swept up by an older family, you know, and by older family, I mean somebody in their 60s, because right now, you can look this up. The average house buyer age in America is 65, 60 or 65. And you think in a healthy situation, country-wise, it should be 30, 32, 35. But now it's 65. Why? Because the houses have jumped up so much. And with inflation, cost of living going up, and even the interest rates, the only person who realistically could put $100,000, $200,000 down on a home that's already way more expensive than it really should be is somebody who are at the end of their career, who maybe has, you know, already sold their first home, you know, and they're like in their 60s, not somebody in their 30s. They might not have $150,000 down, you know, they might not be so far along in their career.
Reason number 6, to lighten it up a little bit, is about beachfront living and having an outdoor lifestyle. So where we live in New Jersey is very much you're only enjoying the beach or doing outdoor activities for maybe half the year, if that, because the other half of the year is very cold. And of course there's things to do in the cold too. You can snowboard, you go outside, play in the snow. But here you are getting more of that year-round beach life. There's a lot more, it's more common to be, I mean, you see even right outside here on the Beta Mar, there's always people outside exercising. There's a big like fitness culture here. People are more concerned with, you know, living a healthier lifestyle. Whereas in America, it's very much, you know, the kids are inside playing video games all the time. Like the kids aren't really getting sunshine and exercise the way that they are here.
The parents are stressed. Everyone's on Adderall. Everyone's on Prozac. People are running around, and I'm not shaming them. I'm just saying, like, that is a difference, especially if you go to any other country. Like, everyone's stressed, their bills, they're paying their credit card with their other's credit card. And of course, like, not to shame the parents, of course, you're going to be burnt out by the time you get home.
And it's like they're
you might
just kind of
give them
throwing their kids their iPads and be
Yeah,
like, all
or
right,
like a
just-
microwave meal,
yeah,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
here
you
you're
do that.
seeing kids that are, you know, riding bikes and families outside rollerblading together. Like, it's very 90s, you know?
Very 90s.
You don't see that in America. Families are not really outside exercising together, getting sunlight together. If they are, it's because maybe they're on their yearly vacation or something. It's not like part of their daily routine the way that it is here.
And for our lifestyle, you know, being tattoo artists, we, you know, unfortunately, like if you do have, I was a union glass technician, so obviously that's a job where I wouldn't be able to travel as much. But yeah, with our lifestyle, we are able to have this luxury of being out. So it might not be, you know, advice for everybody, but it is something that we wanted to set up when we were 20, to have that ability to be able to do those things. Sorry, Mila keeps walking by, so I have to make sure she doesn't hit her head on the camera. But it is something that is easier for some people than others. But we really value, therefore we kind of like base our career around that, you know? Because we saw how it was getting in America. We noticed it right away.
So yeah, are we ready to move on to number 7?
We could move on to number 7.
Reason number 7 is, well, it's not really a reason, but another factor was that Brazil does have a very modern infrastructure. There's the city life here, which, you know, ideally I would like to live somewhere that's a little bit more secluded. Ultimately, like, I would like to have some land, our own private pool, but
She wants goats.
I don't want goats. I want chickens.
Oh, it's chicken, sorry.
I want chickens. I want to lay my own eggs, like eat
That's the
fresh
goats of
eggs,
the bird family.
Even though the eggs are cheaper and healthier here than America.
They are.
But
When we
still.
hold on, when we left America, well, how much were eggs? Like 10, 12
Oh my God,
bucks?
it was so expensive. I think I heard it was like $19.
Yeah,
for
that's
like,
insane, dude. Here we bought 30 eggs for what? Like the
was like
equivalent of like
$3.
yeah, the equivalent of $3. Like
Yeah.
that's insane.
But yeah, so here, you know, like you said before, his family lives here, so this is our introduction year to Brazil. So it's nice to have, you know, you don't really need a car to get by. You can walk everywhere. His family's here, but ultimately we would like to have a property, maybe even somewhere more down south, like Florianopolis, that has more greenery and a little bit more nature. Not that there's not nature here, obviously we're living in front of the ocean. But just a little bit more privacy, a little bit more land.
More of a backyard, more land.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, here you're not, you know, it's not how people think that Brazil is like this very dangerous place. Like we had some family who were concerned about like our safety and how dangerous Fortaleza is.
Out of love, right?
Of course.
Yeah, they just didn't know.
Right.
You know, you only see what you see on the TV, and
And there are neighborhoods,
understandably.
of course. There's bubbles of places just like anywhere. You could be in New York and you're, you know, there's such a contrast of like there's a homeless person here, but then there's a millionaire here. So there is obviously neighborhoods that aren't the greatest here, but we're not living in one of them. We're living in a very privileged, I guess you would
Yeah,
say,
very privileged, like, noble
neighborhood
place.
area,
Yeah.
and we feel very safe. There's really nothing here that we wouldn't have in America, I would say. Like everything
No.
is pretty much
like we have Amazon, you know,
Yeah.
for everybody that loves Amazon. We have, you know,
we don't have some
Wi-Fi.
things like Dunkin' Donuts or
Yeah.
Starbucks, but there are a lot of like European cafes that are arguably even more posh and more upscale than Starbucks for half the cost and don't cause as much cancer as Starbucks
Yeah.
does. Oh. You got your sunglasses?
So that's the thing. Like all those American luxuries are nice, but you do know that it's killing you in
Yeah.
some way. Like I don't mean to sound like crazy,
I mean, Dunkin'
but
Donuts is like
you do know
maybe
that.
10% coffee, like 90% chemicals that are going to cause you cancer.
Yeah.
And it's delicious and it's addictive, but it's not good for you.
And we're saying cancer again. We don't have lab coats on. We're just using that as like hyperbole. But we do know that. Like a lot of those things. Like
I have to
there's
switch
no
my
Dunkin' Donuts in Europe. There's no
sunglasses.
Dunkin' Donuts in Asia. You know, and it's for a reason. And you know, if you're gonna sit here and argue with us on that, then that's your prerogative. I'm not gonna argue with you on that. But it is something that is very clear, very American, and it doesn't bring us joy. Maybe a cup of, you know, 90 grams of sugar plus high fructose corn syrup and all that stuff. Maybe that brings you joy. It never brought me joy. And
It brought me joy, I'm not gonna lie. I love Dunkin', I love Starbucks. When I go back to America, I will probably have a cup of Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks coffee once a day.
I mean, I'll take a couple sips from her thing, I'll be honest. But it's not anything that I would think that my quality of life would be lower by not having them. You know, it's something where, if anything, I mean, I'm adding years to my life, not adding, but I'm not losing years, not being, like you think about like what an iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, like their featured iced coffee. If you drank that every single day, and a lot of people do, like, what does that look like? You know, how do you, like, you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It's like, how do you think that makes you feel? You know, how do you think that affects your mood, your health, you know? And it's a comfort, and you know it's a comfort. That big coffee it's escapism, and it's delicious, but you know you're not doing something good for yourself drinking one of these. Yes. Hold on, we gotta tend to the kids here. What'd you find? Yo, that's a dope shell. You're like the shell hunter today. That's like the 30th shell you found today.
Wait.
I'm gonna go get Mila because she's kind of wandering around a little too much.
Okay, so reason number 8 is our proximity to the airport. So there is an airport in Fortaleza, which means that us traveling back and forth between the United States and Brazil is very easy for us. So there are going to be...
I was gonna say, we are about maybe 7 hours from Miami, so we're super close to North America. And if you're coming from Europe and you want to stop by in Fortaleza, my father just came back from Portugal, and I'm pretty sure he said the flight was like 8 or 9 hours. So where Fortaleza is, you can kind of go anywhere in the world, and the airport is only 30 minutes away. All right, I'm gonna go chase after this kid.
You're like a turtle? So yeah, with us, you know, we have our studio in Asbury Park in New Jersey, and we do have family still in New Jersey. So, you know, our ultimate goal is to kind of go back and forth and live between both places. So it's easy for us to do, being that there is an airport only a half hour away. So another reason is that this is Filipe's homeland. You know, he was born here, he was born in Rio, and being that he is a citizen of both Brazil and the United States, it granted our children dual citizenship as well. So this is a place where, you know, our children can kind of see where their dad is from, experience the Brazilian culture, learn the language, and Filipe gets a chance to kind of reconnect with his roots and spend some time in his homeland.
So, like my wife was saying, I just finished chasing off this baby, or not off, I'm not chasing her away.
Damn.
But chasing her to get her back into our little area here. But yeah, no, what she's saying is 100% correct. One of the big reasons why I wanted to move here is to really show my kids, because I know a lot of Americans don't really leave their country. Like there's actually numbers, you know, this is fact. Most Americans are one of the cultures that barely ever leaves their country.
And if they do, they're going to a resort that basically feels like America.
Exactly,
but
sandals.
yeah, they're not like immersing themselves in the
anything.
Culture of whatever country they might be visiting.
So everything becomes like stereotypes, right? And I wanted to make sure that my kids knew that there's other places on earth that you can live in and be perfectly happy. And in Brazil, you know, being that we're from here, and you know, on top of the fact that you ask any citizen, any global citizen in the world, you go to some guy in China, you go to an old man in Turkey, and you ask him, what country do you think has like the happiest people? And you know, when you think of a happy person, a lot of the times they're going to say Brazil, because the culture here really does pride in being positive and being happy, even though you may not have the most things, like, people do have a smile on their face. You're
not getting, like in America, it's the cheapest place to have like the newest iPhone, let's say, or every kid is going to have like multiple gaming systems and game consoles. Here, the kids maybe are not going to have all of those technological advantages, like, I guess
they're going to have a Nintendo Switch, but they're not going to each have a Nintendo Switch.
Right. So, you know, they might not have those things, but they're more active. They're not, like we were kind of saying before, like they're playing soccer, or they're moving their bodies around. They're not just sitting in their rooms and disconnected
yeah,
from
getting Roblox.
Right,
you know?
exactly.
And they do Roblox culture, gaming culture is very
Right.
big here.
It is common here.
I love gaming. Don't get me wrong. I'll beat anybody in the comment section at FIFA. Come see me. But it's one of those things where it's like, is that really what makes your kids happy? Them each having their own Nintendo? Are those the things that really make your kids? Is that really what's raising them? Is that really what the priorities are? And that's the thing. If you were to take 1,000...
America's the land of excess.
It is. It absolutely is. If you were going to take 1,000 kids from the United States, and then you were going to take 1,000 kids from, let's say, Honduras, Guatemala, you're going to have a lot less kids on antidepressant medication. You're going to have a lot of kids that are... You're going to have a lot less kids that are depressed and all sorts of stuff like that in Guatemala. And maybe they don't have... Or Honduras, or, Philippines. And maybe, yeah, they don't have a PlayStation. Maybe they have to work... loading bananas in a truck, for 8 hours a day. But,
they're grateful. A lot of kids
grateful.
in America are very ungrateful.
Yeah, I know. The culture, an American's favorite thing is to complain about something.
Yeah.
Everyone loves that. But, pound for pound, you're going to have kids that are a lot happier than America. And that's something that,
we can't even say that our kids are, we're trying to get that out of them right now, that kind of entitled, ungrateful kind of attitude that we noticed, they started kind of developing after being exposed to other kids in the school system and everything, and it's not good. Yeah, and that's where homeschooling, we can kind of mitigate that and kind of teach them our values. And I'm not saying we're the Pope and we're the Dalai Lama, but I would want my kids to have similar values to myself, and obviously they're free to do what they want and learn, but at least the part where I'm supposed to take care of them, I want to do my best. I would be disingenuous saying that I would be doing my best parenting, because now you're competing against other people, influences on your kid. You're competing against other kids' influences on your kids, and that's not always a bad thing. But for our lifestyle, we do have the time. Some people might not have the time to homeschool, but we do, and we are all very, very close to begin with. So for us, it works. But yeah, going back to that happiness thing, we just want to make sure that our kids grow up in an environment where they feel that, love from their grandparents. A grandparent is somebody who, don't tell your parents I got you guys a McDonald's. They sneak you a little Twix bar. And I wanted my kids to have that. And in the situation that we had in America, our kids really didn't have that, and maybe you might, in your family, you might have that, and that's something extremely valuable. My relationship with my grandparents was extremely close, and I very much value that I was able to have that, and I want my kids to have that, the taste of that. In America, our situation really didn't allow for too much grandparent time. So, moving here, my wife mentioned, my father does live here, so it leaves that potential, that opportunity is a lot easier for us here than there, And also, a lot of you guys know that your parents might not even have the time that maybe their parents had with you, because now people can't retire in the United States as easily, Maybe you do have parents that work full time and they genuinely want to spend time with the grandkids, but they can't because they gotta, they have to take a second mortgage on their house, or life is not the same as it was in the 80s and the 90s. And being millennials, we definitely remember that. We remember seeing how, heck, there's not even Toys R Us anymore. A lot of those things, they went away. And I spent a lot of time with my grandma as a kid.
Right?
And just simple things, my memories with my grandma were it wasn't anything extravagant. We would, hang out on her front porch, and the ice cream man would come by and we'd get some Italian ice for $1, or we'd go to McDonald's and get an ice cream cone. It was very simple, or the dollar store to get a toy.
Absolutely.
And it was nice, but it was just because she had the time. She worked, but it wasn't anywhere as near as the amount of hours that people need to work now to just
survive. Where we were living in New Jersey, it was a great little town. I love that place. I genuinely do. But you would go to the supermarket, and every once in a while you'd see a lady that was 70 years old working there, and you're thinking, wow, man, no one better be mean to that lady, because that lady is out there, she should be home But I'm sure she's not here just for the funsies. I know sometimes, you know, older people do like to just be there at work and, you know, but she seemed like she was there out of necessity. And it's something so indignant to do to somebody that already has spent their whole life, you know, and I'm sure you guys maybe know people that, you know, in your family or friends of your family, or, you know, that are in that situation where if they stop working, that's it. Their Social Security is not going to be enough, you know, or their lifestyle will be completely different. So here, my father was fortunate enough to retire at 55, I think. And in America, that's like unheard of. But then, you know, America maybe 30, 40 years ago, that was, you know, more common than it is now. So, like I said, I'm not trying to shame anybody, but it is something that is different in America in 2025 that may not have been the same in 1985, you know? So that, to us, coming here is almost like a time machine. We get to kind of experience the 90s again, but in Fortaleza.
All right, we do have to start wrapping this video up because
yes, we do. We're running out of snacks.
And she's handing me nuts that she definitely can't eat because she doesn't have enough teeth.
She has no teeth for that kind of activity.
I don't know what she's thinking.
She's like, I want it though, right, Mila?
So as far as earning US dollars here in Brazil, you know, we do have our own way of doing things where we do have some crypto investments that will allow us to earn in dollars while we're here. We also run our tattoo studio in New Jersey that does generate some income for us here in dollars. And then, you know, there's also, you know, we're planning on tattooing here as well, which obviously we'd be earning in reais, but, you know, it's still income. Hopefully this YouTube channel will potentially generate some income. Filipe's been, you know, talking about gigging and playing some music, something that he enjoys, just, you know, mostly kind of for fun, just like a soul-fulfilling kind of thing, but also, you know,
and it's a good way to network.
While doing it is never
it's never a bad thing.
Right.
And it's a good way to network too for the tattoo studio here that we one day want to have. It is a good way to meet people and network because we're in a new city and we don't really know that many people outside of my family and a couple friends we've made so far. But I
will say that the people that we have even just run into on the streets talking, people are a lot friendlier. Like in New Jersey, people kind of pass by each other. They don't really bother with one another. You know, where we lived, our neighbors were friendly. You know, we had more of a neighborhood than maybe others might have experienced with in New Jersey. People are a lot friendlier here, a lot more welcoming. You connect more. People take the time more to kind of strike up a conversation with you on the streets. We've had people, like we're sitting next to them on the beach, that find out that we're new here and they're like, let me, you know, give you my phone number if you ever need anything. Like, people are a lot more welcoming and friendly, especially with foreigners too. They're very welcoming, which is nice.
So here, you're technically the foreigner, right? Yeah. And I will tell you, as somebody, gringa. I will tell you from somebody who had moved to the United States when I was a child and had family and friends that didn't necessarily speak English right away. So in America, there is a little bit of like a, maybe New Jersey's just like that. I'm not going to speak for South Carolina or Tennessee.
I'm sure it's worse there.
It could be. I'm not sure, you know, but you do get into the situation where if you don't speak the language in America, 99% of people, or a lot of people, will kind of talk to you like you're dumb or you're like wasting their time.
Angry at you.
Yeah, they're angry. They're like, come to my country, don't speak my language.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not cool. And here, for example, and Carol will attest to this, people are super patient, and even if they gotta, obrigado, cara. And people are super patient and they'll talk to you, and even if they don't speak the same language as you, they'll bust out the sign language, they'll draw a picture on a chalkboard, they'll do something to try to talk to you. And there's not that like, hurry up for nothing. What is the thing? Hurry up to go nowhere. Yeah. You know, there's not that like urgency of like, you're wasting my time. There's more of a like you're a foreigner and I'm putting myself in your shoes. And if I was in your country, I wish you would talk to me this way because you genuinely don't know anything. Right. And in America, that kind of is not the case, you know. But it's a lot of a calmer, kinder society here.
So yeah, those are some of the reasons why we came here, some of the ways that we're sustaining our life here. You know, I mentioned before that ultimately like our end goal is to kind of live between the two. You know, we have our life in America and we are establishing a life here in Brazil. As we get used to Brazil, obviously this is more of an adjustment for me than for Filipe, being someone who's from this country and who knows the language. So.
And I do give you a lot of props for that, because this move obviously is a lot easier for me,
right,
who is a citizen here, who has lived here and speaks the language. So a lot of props to you for that.
I've only ever lived in New Jersey. I've never even so much as lived in another state. So this is a huge change for me, and we're only...
I was gonna say, little fun fact, her family has lived in New Jersey, Pennsylvania since before
like the
Lincoln.
1800s.
Yeah, so she's like the first of her whole lineage to even think, to even be ballsy enough. You're a legend in the Lowry family now, in the Flannery family.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you literally are, you're like the Lewis and Clark of your family, dude. You're Sacagawea.
But yeah, anyway, so this is a huge adjustment for me. It's only been, how long have we been here now?
Like 2 months-ish.
2 months almost. And yeah, I mean, obviously, like, especially in the beginning, like I had moments where I was like, whoa, like the culture shock was like really hitting, and I was feeling a bit homesick.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, becoming more comfortable, and I'm getting more used to it. The language barrier still is a bit of a struggle, but I am grateful that I have him to kind of help with that.
And the people are nice.
Yeah, and
it's
the
pretty
people
good.
are still,
Imagine if it was the opposite.
Yeah,
oh my God.
They're okay with me not knowing the language. So it's a whole new world, but so far everyone seems to be really liking it. The kids really like it here. They don't really have any desire to go back to America. Kai eats acai every day and absolutely loves it. It's like his favorite thing in the world. They're doing well with homeschool. Everyone seems to be adjusting fairly well. So it seems to be a good fit. Obviously, you know, we miss our family and our family misses us, but in time we will be back, and we'll be back to kind of, you know, take our clients too that we have in America. So I think we're going to find a nice balance between the two.
Yeah, it's natural to feel a little homesick, and especially as parents too. You think like, am I making the right decision? You know, because I'm sure lots of people, especially millennials, have thought about like, I can move to New Zealand, or I can go to, you know, Dominican, or whatever it is, right?
It has to make sense.
It has to make sense.
We hope that our story might inspire someone else who may have maybe kind of sick of what's going on in America and maybe kind of exploring alternate options, whether that be, you know, even moving something smaller scale, moving to a new town or moving to a new state. You know, if it's feasible, moving to a new country, but, you know, that might not be
possible
as
you
possible
know?
as it
or
was
as
in
easy.
our case.
Maybe not even
Right.
impossible, but
Right.
it might require a little more steps than for us.
Yeah.
You know, we obviously had to get the kids' passports. We had to figure out stuff with our business. We had
wasn't
you know,
easy.
it was not easy. You
And
know,
it was a huge risk, a calculated risk,
a calculated risk.
but a big risk.
It was, absolutely. You don't want to just take blind risks. You want to take
Right.
calculated risks. And if your heart's in the right place, that calculated risk might be something that in 5 years, 10 years time, 30 years time will be the thing that, you know, you'll be really thankful that you did. And that's true. That's life, you know. Cool. Are we ready to wrap this up?
I think so. These
right.
waves are getting crazy and they're freaking me out.
I got to jump in there before we leave too, because this whole time we were talking, I haven't gotten to jump in the water, and I feel like a fish out of water, no pun intended. I'm gonna, you know, get my sea legs. But either way, y'all, thank you guys for watching our video. Thank you guys for, you know, even showing interest in our page. We only launched about 2-3 weeks ago, and our page is growing, and we really feel grateful that you guys are following us along. Thank you guys for, you know, the comments and the likes, the questions, and even on the bottom of this video, leave some questions. We might have to do a part 2. Thank you guys so much for being a part of our journey, and we will talk to you guys next time in our next video. We post weekly, so stay tuned. Usually it comes out on Sunday, sometimes on Monday. Today is Sunday, so we'll see if we can even edit this video on time, because we're still pretty lazy over here, and that's a pun.
I don't think we're lazy.
No, for the lazy, you know, we're not lazy, but yes, guys, thank you guys so much for all the love and support. Feel free to leave us a like and a subscribe if you're new here. Stay tuned, because we do want to show you guys other parts of what it means to live abroad, from homeschooling to things that we wish we knew about Brazil before we moved, other things that we're super grateful for. So follow us along in our journey, and thank you guys for watching.
Ciao.
Ciao. Peace.